Hey everybody, welcome to the first of two videos I'm putting out on the channel today. This, as you can see, is 20 board games to get to know me. I will also do a 20 video games to get to know me video right alongside this. There's been like a meme or thing that people are doing on social media. I first saw it on David Vink RPG's channel, which I'll put a link to his video below, and he did it with JRPGs, and I said, oh, that's cool. He said everybody's doing it, and I started to notice a lot of people do it on my social media feeds for video games. And I said, well, there needs to be one for board games too. And so anyway, so I will have links to stuff in the description about the site that you can go to create this. Now, there's obviously a template already to do the video game one. That one's typically like a 10 or 25 game thing. I just did 20, and the categories in this one and the board game one are almost the same as the ones in the video game one. There's like 3 that are different just because, you know, video games and board games. And it's just 20 categories, and I thought it was fun. I've been having fun seeing people, you know, share games in these categories, and it's really cool because it's more like, this isn't my favorite game or the best game or whatever. It's like to get to know them. It's like, oh, that's kind of their vibe, you know, with this kind of thing. So let's just jump right into it. I'll try to keep these videos pretty quick and not go crazy on the descriptions and stuff like that, just to give you a little bit of a flavor of, like, you know, kind of what I'm into, what I'm about. So this is the board game one. So we'll start with that one. And the first category is everyone should play. And for me, my everyone should play is Tigris and Euphrates. For me, this game is simple enough, and the design is sort of like clean enough, but there's just a lot of things that the first time you play it, you're just not going to pick up. And as you play through the game a couple of times, you're going to start to see little nuances and things like that. And this is, of course, one of the early board games I played when I started really getting into the hobby. And it's just a lot of moments where like, oh, wow, look at that. Oh, wow, I never thought it would happen like this. Or then you play it a second or third time after that. And then it's just the game plays out so differently than it played in your previous games. And the scoring is really interesting and unique. Although, I mean, by this time the game is like a 1995 or 97 game. So people have seen this kind of scoring a little bit. But for the time especially, and I think even still holds up today, the scoring is just a little bit like counterintuitive, and it's very interesting. And like I said, the game's very simple, but it's also a little bit counterintuitive in ways. But I think that if I said everyone should play, I would say get this game or get a buddy with this game, get a couple of plays in, and I think you'll be rewarded for it with some really fun experiences and just some really interesting sort of riffs on some like traditional style of games and stuff like that. So that's everyone should play, Tigris and Euphrates. So the next category for me is nostalgic, and for me that has to be Dragonlance. This is one of the first games, my earliest memories of me like saving up money, saving up allowance money, lawn mowing money and stuff like that to buy. I used to see it at the mall all the time. We had this in the next town over, there was a big mall, and there was this big board game tabletop store. I bought like a D&D red box there and stuff like that. And they always had this one set up, and it's just this huge, massive dragon war, and it's just this big, epic miniatures game. It's kind of like the first miniatures game I ever really played, even though it's a board game. And my brother and I used to play it all the time. We'd play it like, 2 teams on each other, or 3 teams versus 3 teams, and all that fun stuff. And it's just a big, fun, like epic battle, lots of dice rolling and crazy combat maneuvers and all that. I always want to like find a designer. Like I always picture myself stealing Rob Davio from Restoration Games and saying, Rob, let's do this. Let's make this design, because I think it's very close actually to still holding up. There's a couple of little wrinkles there, but I can't dismiss the amount of fun and all of that kind of stuff that we had with the game when we were kids. So the next category is retro, and retro in the board game world is a little bit tricky for me because there was a lot of period of time where there wasn't really like a lot of board games coming out yet. I mean, there were, but not like today. Whereas video games, there was always a ton of video games coming out in like the 80s and 90s and so on. But for me, I'll put Scotland Yard. And to me, I put that in retro instead of nostalgia because Scotland Yard's still around. And I have a lot of fun memories playing that with my family as a kid. We played it all the time and really enjoyed it. I loved being Mr. X in that case, or being one of the investigators from Scotland Yard trying to find him. And I think they just came out with a new edition like this year. And I can't remember what it was. There was some riff on it, but they always kind of regurgitate that game with some kind of riff or re-theme or something like that. And it is really a solid game, and it spawned the whole kind of one versus many hidden movement games like Fear of Dracula. Well, there's a whole bunch I can't think of. Spectre Ops, Metal Gear Solid type of vibe to it. And it's a great game. It's a really great game. It holds up exactly as it did in the 80s as it does today. So that's the retro, Scotland Yard. The next one is, this is a different category than the video game. So when there are differences, I will mention it. There's only 3 differences here. The rest of the categories are exactly the same. So this one I call Design Elegance in this case, where it's called Dungeon Design in the other video game one, or maybe Level Design's better, but I stuck with Dungeon. So here, this is Design Elegance. And the reason I called it this is because I think, I don't know, there's something, board games encompass a lot of things. There's a lot of ways you can look at it. And one of those is definitely when you see something and it's like so simple, but it just all packs its punch. And for me, the Design Elegance is San Juan. It's so simple. It's just cards. You pay for cards with other cards, all that kind of stuff. And then you just build up kind of 12 buildings in front of you, and then the game ends. And then the buildings themselves can produce goods, and those goods are just cards. You just take the cards off the top of the deck and you stack them on the building, and you can sell those cards or those goods, and guess what they give you as cash? More cards. So you can do more stuff with them. And there's a lot of cool special abilities in the cards. So if you're like a Magic the Gathering type of person, or if you're in this hobby at all, Race for the Galaxy, all those kinds of things, then this one just has, it's a very like tight, compact, fun game. And I still have it. I still love it. I have my 2nd edition copy still. And it's a game that I could never not recommend, because I think most people will just get a ton of fun out of this game. So that's the Design Elegance. I hate the word elegance, but it's the tight design, so that's San Juan. The next category is Turn My Brain Off. And the Turn My Brain Off game for this is Exploding Kittens. I almost put Exploding Kittens as most overhated category, which is down the list here, because people hate on this game so much, but man, we've had so much fun. And this is a type of thing where you will play this game while you're doing something else. Like you just will be talking at work. And we played it at work a whole bunch back in the day at lunch. And we'd just be talking about whatever, work or stuff on the news or, whatever. And just be playing this game. Because it basically, you just like, you get the exploding kitten, and then you have the little diffuse bomb cards, and then you stick it back in if you can defuse it, or else you're out of the game. And you either stick it at the bottom of the deck or right back on top, or like 3 cards down or whatever, and that's it. I mean, that's just the game. And it's just looking each other in the eye and kind of bullshitting with each other about what's going on. So the whole fun of the game is just the smack talk, and that's all it is. And that's just really fun. It's just a lot of fun. It's not something probably when you're going to go to like a game night and have a special event and do that. Like, that's not the environment that it's for. It's for turning your brain off, and you're having something else is happening, and then you're kind of like intermingling that with the game space. So that's Turn My Brain Off, and that's Exploding Kittens. The next category is Not Really My Thing, and for me, that's the game Ships by Martin Wallace. And the thing that is not really my thing is technology obsolescence. So you see that a lot in 18xx train games and other games, mostly train games, where you'll be playing the game, you maybe have stock in different train companies and things like that. And then at some point, something triggers in the game, whether it's just a certain round number or some action that a player does. And then all of like the level 1 or level 2 trains you have are now useless, because now we've migrated to level 3 and 4. And then that becomes useless. And there's a lot of things I really have come up to understand over the years that I don't like about like 18xx, like stock and train games. One of those is obsolescence. The other is the monkey wrench market economics that don't make any sense. But the obsolescence is just a thing it's not really my thing. Like, at that part I can kind of jive with and be like, yeah, I can kind of understand, because obviously technology progresses and you have old cars, but I'm like, the old cars still work. They're just not as efficient as the new cars. So why do I have to stop using them altogether? That just bugs me. Now, ships is weird. It's kind of like a riff on his automobiles game, but it's with like ships in the sea, but it's also like a civilization game. So the way this thing does it is just very unique and cool. And it kind of makes more sense here because the ships are actually kind of useless if you think of it in like a war context, because if you've got a little penner boat that's like made out of wood or whatever, and then a battleship comes along, your ship is useless. It doesn't make any sense. So for me, I'm kind of being very circumspect here about the game because I'm trying to be interested in time. But yeah, so it's not my thing, but is ships from Martin Wallace. And I think that one's probably due for another edition. I'd like to see that one come out again. Next category is indie game, which is very weird for the board game world. And this is actually not a board game, but a tabletop game, because I think the whole hobby almost is indie. I think 90% of the stuff, maybe 80%, is indie. Everything is indie. You know, you've got your big companies like Hasbro and Games Workshop and Asmodee, and then what else? Like, you know, everybody else is an indie developer. But the most indie of indie things that I think is still a really awesome game is a miniatures game called Relic Blade. And that is a miniature skirmish tabletop game. It's kind of a small footprint miniature game. You usually play like on a 3 foot by 3 foot table. The thing that makes it so indie to me is Sean Sutter of Metal King Studios, who does this. He does the miniature sculpting, he does the artwork, he does the rulebook outline and design, he does the rules for the game, he does everything. And actually, just recently, they started coming out with plastic miniatures for this. In the past, it's always been metal because it's a little bit more cost effective for smaller print runs and things like that. So I think the game has got enough of a type of momentum there. And, but now there's actually plastic miniatures for it that you can get. I think there's 2 separate kits right now. And it's a really fun game. It's a little bit more simple of a game, but I think there's still a lot of fun and depth to it. It's one of my top favorite skirmish games ever, regardless of whether it was indie or not. And that's why I really wanted to highlight it here, because I think it's an actually excellent game, excellent system, and it blows my mind that one person, although he definitely has help and stuff like that, I don't want to, have oversight or about, all the folks that I know that he has working with him, but you got to take a look at Relic Blade. This is a lot of fun. If you wanted to get into a miniatures game and hadn't really yet, this is a great game to get into it with. I highly recommend it. So that's the indie game, which is Relic Blade. The next category is Made Me Think. This is a game that made me think. And this is another one I was like, man, there's a lot of these I could put in here. So I'm going to put in a recent game, which I talked about in my top 10 from last year, which is Cross Bronx Expressway. And there's some recency bias there because there's some others that I can kind of go back to whose probably their impact has sort of just wafted away a little bit, over the years. But I think the more I thought about it, this one is really solid. So this is about developing the Bronx borough from about like the 1940s up until about modern times. And there's kind of 3 factions. You've got sort of the public sector, the private sector, and then like the community. And so it's a little bit abstract in that sense, but each team is like trying to win. And so it's a 3-player game, although you can have, bots and stuff like that play the other players. But you're trying to win because everybody has a kind of like different asymmetric kind of win condition, but at a certain point, everybody can lose. So it's a semi-cooperative. So if the private side is like really greedy and doesn't really kind of, help out with the finances of the other side, then everybody's going to lose because everything goes to heck in the Bronx, and vice versa. So everybody's got to kind of work together for a certain extent, but with their own kind of selfish individual goals. And there's no way to do it justice here. I'll have a video review up for it. I've had it up for a while, I should say. But it's just very like man, these people really do need to work together. You know what I mean? You can't just be like, oh, I hate private companies and you know, capitalism. And you can't just be like, man, I hate socialism and regulation and you know, and community efforts and community organizers. You can't be like that in life. Like, you know what I mean? That's the last. I mean, man, these people got to work together. You know what I mean? And because this game just beats it into your brain in like the greatest way, because it doesn't like sit up there and preach about it. It's like you get in the game and then you work it and you're like, whoa, this is tough. And yeah, so anyway, Cross Bronx Expressway, it's a one-of-a-kind game for sure. And it's hard to recommend because I think it's going to bounce off people. I played it with different groups and some have been like, yeah, I don't know about this, but others have loved it. But I would say at least try the game and play it. Okay, so that's the Made Me Think game, Cross Bronx Expressway. And so the next category is favorite solo game, which I don't have in the video game one, that have favorite antagonist and protagonist, which came from the main sort of meme that's coming around. So this one I have favorite solo and then favorite party. We'll talk about solo here. My favorite solo, I just did my top 10 solo thing like a month ago. This is Warhammer Quest 1995 edition. This to me is my favorite solo experience. I talked a bunch about it in that video. For me, it's just like the whole like world building experience and all of the new content that's come out from Little Monk for that game to really round out and just add a bunch of variety to the play space and for the world. It's so much fun. And it's one of those that is like, there's like enough going on where your brain's busy, it's thinking, but the gameplay mechanics and everything is very simple. It can be very brutal, but you're juggling up like multiple characters. Like I've got like 8 or 9 characters across different like sort of campaigns, or one kind of main campaign, but people I can kind of pick up and drop out and all that stuff in the play session. So it's just fun. It's just a very cool kind of like world building sort of situation. And you know, characters die when you're playing alone, no big deal. But if you're playing with a group and then like, you know, Billy's character dies, well, it sucks for Billy. Billy's not having a lot of fun there. So anyway, that's my favorite solo Warhammer Quest 1995. Now my favorite party game is the next category. That was my favorite game of last year, which is Hot Streak. And this is a tough one because there's a lot of good games in here. I could see a lot of folks do different games, like Just One is a great game. I just reviewed a game called French Toast, which I think is a lot of fun. But for me, Hot Streak's just really cool. I talked a ton about it last year in the review and then the top games, video game of the year thing. A lot of people had it at either not at the top, but like near the top of their list last year. And it is just a fantastic, fun, silly game that, you know, when we brought it to like a game day or a game night, we played it back to back to back, you know, multiple times in a row in favor of, you know, more serious games that would take an hour and a half or 2 hours. You know, we'll spend a lot of time playing this multiple times, and had a lot of fun with the family with it and all that stuff. So favorite party game, Hot Streak. I think this is also like an everyone should play type of game, going back to that one. So the next one is Criminally Overlooked. So it's just like, it's not underrated, which we'll get to, but it's just like, oh, we missed that one. And for me, that is Moonbase Alpha. Now, Moonbase Alpha is long on a print. It was designed by Chris Taylor, who did Nemo's War, which is a somewhat popular solitaire game. But Chris Taylor also is somewhat famous for helping out, I think it was a lead developer, I can't remember the exact title he had, on Fallout 1. The video game. And he's done a lot of other games, Astra Titanus, Legion of Darkness, and some other games. A lot of these games were for Victory Point Games, which is long gone. Unfortunately, the CEO of Victory Point Games passed away a couple of years ago. But he's done some work to kind of bring some of these things back. So it sounds like some of his games are coming back. And one that I've really always enjoyed from him, it's a 2-player head-to-head game where 2 companies are basically fighting over the moon, and they have these things where they're going to try to like mine the moon for the minerals and stuff, and then also there's some combat, and then there's some like propaganda, so they each have their own like network TV station sort of thing set up to like, you know, broadcast the truth back to home. It's just awesome, and it's very tight and compact. It's probably an hour to play the game. It doesn't take very long at all. And it's just really cool. It's really fun. I really like the graphic design of it and everything. Like, you could probably keep it relatively the same if they were to ever, you know, do a remake of it. But you can still go get it secondhand. Like it's not super expensive. And I was thinking about this because other games of his are getting some remake investment time, or they're getting a look, right? So we'll see what actually comes out. But this is one I'm always like, man, nobody really ever even talked about this when it came out, and I thought it was just a blast. It was so fun and silly and almost like campy, because you got these like astronaut guys tromping around. Think of like For All Mankind and stuff like that, and espionage and little firefights, and then you got the whole propaganda piece, and it's just a lot of fun. So that's the criminally overlooked Moonbase Alpha. The next one is in a similar vein. Here is Needs a Remake. And the game that needs a remake 1 billion% is Forbidden Stars. It is a crime against somebody that this game has not been picked up, because people that have played this game, I still have the game, and they love it. And it's just a ton of fun. It's a great, there's so many smart things about the design. The combat's basically deck building with this, it's just a really quick sort of deck building thing. And then the way that you get objectives and score points in the game is just so different, because it's not like you're just trying to take over territory and own it. You have very specific things you have to do, either to like rescue a certain like leader or just do a certain things. So it's like nobody's going to win the war. Like there's no like ultimate winner, like in a game of Eclipse or Twilight Imperium or something like that. It's like, oh, you've got some goals you have to accomplish. And so you're just, because the war is everlasting, it's set in a 40K universe. But so if you can kind of eke out these little victories there, then you're declared the winner for this moment in time with the game. And there is a great set of fan expansions that I don't have yet. I'm actually hopefully getting them soon within the next couple of months. But just looking at everything that they've done there with the help of some professional designer types, or just people that know what they're doing, it was to add some extra factions and stuff. And I'm like, man, somebody just needs to pick this up, take that stuff, run it through the ringer, do some play testing, and then just come out with this thing and have like 10 different factions and really spin it up. And I mean, GW should be the one to do it. They don't like to do board games that much anymore, but somebody's got to just pick this one up and do it, because it's so smart in the design, and it's just a lot of fun, and it's one of those sort of 4X area control types of games that doesn't really feel as mean as it probably should, even though there's tons of combat and things. There's no like you feel bad, you feel like you're getting screwed by the game, that type of thing. Yeah, you're going to lose some combats and things, but like the overall sort of feeling of it feels very fair and very engaging, like all the way through. So that is the Needs a Remake, is Forbidden Stars. Now, overrated, I'm going to probably get hated for this, is I'm just going to say Magic the Gathering. Because I'm like, well, this is the most overrated thing in the whole world. And because there are just so many better card games than Magic the Gathering. I'm just talking from a design perspective and just like an overall theme and whatever. And I don't really want to spend much time on it, because Magic the Gathering is just something like I just don't need to know any more about. I played enough of it over the decades, and that's it. So I feel mean-spirited even having this category, but it's one of the things. And if you had to pin me down and say what's overrated, I say Magic, easy, because there are just dozens of card games that are better, in my opinion. So we're just going to move on from that one. That's overrated. And then underrated is Jaws. And this came out from Ravensburger, designed by the folks at Prospero Hall. It's based on the Jaws movie. And this thing is very well regarded, don't get me wrong. Like, a lot of people have come out and in favor of this game and given it all the kudos that it deserves. But for me, I feel like kind of like this game should be even more highly rated. Like, it should be in the top 100 on BGG or something like that, because it really elicits a lot of the interesting feelings of the movie. I mean, you get to play the shark and it's not silly. It's not, I mean, it's fun. It's silly fun, but it's not goofy, And it's just really cool. And the way that there are like kind of like two stages of the game where the shark is like swimming around the island and eating people, and you're trying to like capture the shark and do that. And that sort of part of the game feeds into the last part of the game where they're on the big boat, and which is like the last half of the movie. And so they got the boat, and the boat shark's like destroying the boat, and you're trying to do that. And it always kind of comes down to like some dice roll or something at the end where the shark wins, or the people hunting the shark wins. It's beautiful. It's a great game, and it takes like an hour, And I feel like it's underrated still, because I think this is really, in my opinion, like a classic. It's been, what, 10 years maybe now? No, not that many. It's been a while. It's been a few years now. And it's a classic design, in my opinion. I think it's a fantastic game. So that's Jaws, which is underrated. And the next one I'm going to talk about, which is overhated. Not overrated, but overhated. And I would probably throw Exploding Kittens in here, but I already talked about that. I would say Urban Sprawl, which is a game from Chad Jensen, who recently passed away. Unfortunately, Chad has done some great games like Dominant Species and Combat Commander and some other games like that. And I feel like, and this is mostly from other like YouTubers and reviewers and stuff, I've run into a lot of people that say, man, you're so right about Urban Sprawl. So not a lot of people, let's be fair, but enough to make me be like, yeah, this game's actually a lot of fun. Now, Urban Sprawl is like a city building game, like think of SimCity or something like that. But it's a little bit more, I would say mean, but the players aren't really mean to each other. But here's the thing. There's a lot of city building board games now, a fair amount. And none of them have the main part of SimCity, which is like the catastrophes and like the economic collapse and all of these different things that make it fun. They're just like these like milquetoast, like vanilla city building games that are just like straight up Euros. And it's like, yeah, okay, whatever. This one, like, you know, you will just have a calamity after calamity come up, but that's kind of part of the fun of the game. And then you have to sort of deal with that. So after you play it, you know, one time, you realize, okay, I don't want to put all my eggs in the one basket here. And it has this very simple like political phase type of thing, which is just like a role selection that it turns out to be. It's not really like a politics type of thing, but it kind of gives you like special powers. Your special powers kind of rotate. Anyway, so the game is really good. It's overhated by far because it's chaotic for sure. But it's supposed to be. You know, the game is supposed to be chaotic. It's supposed to be like, you know, city government is a nightmare. Look at Cross Bronx Expressway. It has the same kind of thing going on in that game, where it's like, you know, government or city government, if you're trying to do it with legitimate intentions, is a nightmare to actually try to pull off. Now, if you're a grifter trying to milk the whole system, then who cares what you think? But if you are, you know, really trying to actually do some good, it's rough. And so Urban Sprawl 100% gets that. And it's overhated. So that's my overhated, Urban Sprawl. Now, Best Combat. This is a tricky one. Best Combat was a lot of them that I could put in there. Thought about putting like a miniature skirmish game in there. I put Dune Imperium because the thing about it that sticks out to me always about Dune Imperium is the actual moment that there's combat is like nothing happens, right? You just count up the score. There's a couple of card reveals, but the combat, everything else that happened in that round and in previous rounds and what might happen in the next round informs that moment of fight, that moment of conflict. And to me, that is the coolest thing about it, because it abstracts it, and this is one of those design elegance types of things. It abstracts it in such a compact way that everything else in the system is important, and that's what actually where the combat is. So the fight isn't where you think it is. The fight is somewhere else, where there's getting this resource or going and getting this alliance with this faction or getting this certain type of card or doing this thing. It all boils right into that moment, and it does allow for some surprise, not a ton usually. And usually once you've played the game, you know that there's going to be a surprise, because you're like, they have this intrigue card. Holy cow, what's in there? You know what I mean? So that's really cool. And I think that is just the best way to do it. And I know some grognard is going to come and say, what about the 1979 Dune game from Avalon Hill? And that's like, okay, cool, pick a number and then guess. And then to me, it gets so far off of the actual source material. It's more like Cosmic Encounter with a board. Anyway, the more I've played these games over the years, I've just convinced that Dune Imperium is like the Dune game to play. But anyway, Best Combat, Dune Imperium. Biggest personal impact is Kalis. This is another one I could have had a lot of stuff here, a lot of stuff. Kalis, similar to Dragonlance, was one of the first games when I got into the hobby that I was like, oh, I'm going to research this. I'm going to go get it, because I had a game group that I played with. They had like Power Grid in Puerto Rico and San Juan and Lowenhers and Catan and all these different things like that. And so then I started getting into the hobby right around the time Kalis was coming out, I think 2004, 2005. And I was like, oh, this looks cool. Like, it's a worker placement. What is that? And I don't think they called it worker placement back then. But, you know, I was like, and you build up the town. The town sort of comes up on the board, and you build the castle. And everybody on BGG was raving about it. I think it got up to like #1 or #2 at the time. And so it was kind of out of print. It was one of those that, you know, back then they didn't all just come over here. So I got a copy. It was like $50. And I think I went to Boards and Bits. It used to be a website called Boards and Bits. Everybody used it. And the guy was local over here. And I went to his warehouse and got it. Because I was like, oh, your warehouse is here. So anyway, long story short, that group at the time that I was with, we played the heck out of it. Everybody really enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed it. And it was one of those where it's like the full like breadth of the experience of the game. It almost really nothing to do with the game, although I still think the game is fantastic. But it was all that whole process for me, which really just got me into the hobby, like learning about mechanics, reading reviews, and all of that. And then like really sitting with the game strategically and thinking about stuff. And you know, I remember back at the time we had a rule like don't read any strategy guides. That was the time, and I still don't do that. I just do not read strategy guides because that is just ruins the fun. And that was one of those where we would like see. I remember there was like collective moments as a group. We were like, oh wow, look, oh shit, you know, like, and then you'd have this like these cool moments and be like, oh man, I got screwed, but man, now we know as a group like how this stuff works. You know, and this is like the first or second, whatever you want to call it, first worker placement game. And so it was just neat. So just that whole like experience of like, dude, when you take that space, you know what I mean? Like now everybody's like, yeah, we know it's a worker placement game. Shut up. But back then it was like, oh my God, you can move the provost. You can be a total asshole, you know, but I'm going to give him money. You know, it's this whole thing. This is great. So biggest personal impact is definitely Kalis. So next category here is favorite art style, and for the game I picked Legends of Andor, but that's basically Michael Menzel. Could have done a lot of things here. Vincent Dutray, Ian O'Toole, Beth Sobel. I like her stuff a lot. There's a bunch of people I like, but I just can't think of their names. The thing with Michael Menzel, but I'm going to do a quick soapbox. BGG needs to put the artist on the friggin' game page so I can see who did the art. Somebody needs to do that. Do I can volunteer to edit their database for them and set up a tool so people can submit the artist? It can't be that hard, you know, because I was trying to find Michael Menzel games he did art for, which I know he did like Stone Age, but you can't find that. You can find the games he's designed, which is Legends of Andor is one of them, but not the games he did the art for. That's a terrible oversight. Anyway. His stuff is great, and the reason I put him sort of above everybody else is his boards are seamless. Like it looks like an actual landscape, and then the spaces are there, as opposed to like, you know, drawing a border or a box. Now, not everybody has to do that. Not every game needs that. But the way he does it, and it works so well, especially Legends of Andor, and then he did the Robin Hood game a couple of years ago, which was great. You could like pop off the little pieces of cardboard and put them back and like change the board state and all that. It's just beautiful. And he just has a real talent there. And I think that's his style is something that should be, I think there should be more people that try that, because I feel like that is such an overlooked thing. Like there's such, the default is to sort of make everything like a spreadsheet. And oh my God, like somebody try to do one of these heavy Euros like Menzel would do it. You know what I mean? Maybe it's impossible. If a game gets too heavy, maybe it breaks down and you can't have it, you know, be as like tightly illustrated and graphically designed as a Menzel would do it. But man, I wish more games were like that, where it's just like everything sort of flowed like water. Anyway, favorite art style, Michael Menzel. Legends of Andor is the game. Favorite story, another game from last year, Tales of Arthurian Knights. This is another one that I could have put a lot of games in. Oathsworn, I don't know. That's the only game I can think of. But the one that pops right in my head, Tales of Arthurian Knights. It's a beautiful game. The reason this is the top one for me is because the level of care and craft that goes into the story entries, because you've got a big book, of passages, and they're quite wordy, but they're written the best I've ever seen a like piece of flavor text or a paragraph written in the board game space. You got to find somebody that can know the material or just be at tune with the material, because you know, Arthurian Nights, there's a wealth of material to pull from. So even if you were making up like a whole new brand new fiction, you got to have an author in there. You got to have somebody that is like knows how to write and is not just like, hey, come up with some flavor text, Bill, you know. You know, because that's what this one goes, because even when I'm in it, I'm like, I will lose myself in the paragraph and feel like, oh, this is like a good snippet from some ancient tale or something written in the 50s or whatever, you know, or the 1800s. And it's beautiful in that case. And I have to give that the kudos. It's fantastic. So that's favorite story, Tales of Arthurian Nights. Last category, favorite game, Rangers of Shadow Deep, which has been like my #1 game for the last couple of top 50s that I did. Yeah, so I've talked a lot about it on the channel. You know, it's a solo co-op miniature skirmish game that has a really vast, expansive narrative campaign. It gives me that D&D sort of taste because it's a D20 system, and it's very like miniature escape world building type of thing. I talked about my favorite solo category, Warhammer Quest. I mean, this one should swap in there too. But you know, it's just this one I would play co-op or solo more. I would probably just stick with Warhammer Quest solo, and it's just great. It gives you the chance to just play with all of your toys, and play with all of your terrain and your models and your creative thinking, your world building, because you can still kind of be a game master for yourself, because the game lays out like a narrative thing, and then there's some like deck of card things that sort of change up the scenarios if you play them more than once. And so there is sort of a game master there, but the game master's kind of like left the table by the time you get there. They're gone. They gave you the outline, and then you're there to kind of game master and play at the same time. So yeah, so that's definitely my favorite game, Rangers of Shadow Deep. So this is the board game video. I'm now going to push pause, get a drink, and then do my video game one. And all the categories will be the same except for the 3 that I mentioned through the video, because it doesn't make sense for a video game, and those categories in the video game don't make sense here. So thank you for watching. And also, I should have said this at the beginning, but I did say that I will have links to the stuff, and if you want to make your own and stuff and share it on social media. I'll talk about this in the social media post a little bit, but yeah, so thanks.